A CBC investigation has made public the inner workings of a suspected British Columbia theft ring targeting Lululemon stores. It involves hundreds of thousands of dollars in clothes and teams of shoplifters and repeated trips to those stores in and around Vancouver. CBC reporter Jason Proctor looked into these documents, listened to court hearings. You have lots of information about this, and it sounds like a sophisticated operation.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you think of shoplifting as being kind of random or opportunistic. What's suggested by these documents is that you have prolific shoplifters at the bottom level who are sort of receiving orders and haggling over, prices with somebody who's allegedly sort of a middleman of this, actually somebody who's been charged with trafficking in stolen goods, stolen clothes, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of which have been seized. And then according to these documents, he was also having these conversations with this woman with no criminal record, but with a knowledge of sort of what's selling in terms of Lululemon pants, saying, I need skin cream because, prices in Canada are so expensive compared to Europe and Asia. And, so the police suspect because of that, according to these documents, that she's sort of an organizer of this. And so, based on that, they ultimately got a search warrant for her home and her vehicle.
Yeah, so these shoplifters were taking out, making lots of trips and taking out a lot of product, right?
Yeah, that's the allegation. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stolen gear. Transit police seized this last year. This is all connected into another seizure, which is $175,000 more worth of stolen gear, plus bundles of gift cards, found allegedly, and also cash as well that was found allegedly in this woman's house.
Yeah, the transit police got involved because the SkyTrain, our commuter train here in Vancouver, was being used as the getaway vehicle for some of the earlier thefts. One of the fascinating things in your reporting here is, as you went through the documents, you found out that Lululemon has a device that the police used to track down the stolen goods.
Yeah, exactly. So Lululemon has these asset protection teams, and they have this wand, basically. It's like a infrared device, basically. And there's little wireless tags that you have in clothes, and those have all this information. So basically, they give these to the cops who stand outside the woman's house, outside her garage, also on a neighboring property, pointing this wand.
That's the amazing thing, is how far away they could be and basically do this search without even stepping onto the property in some cases.
Exactly, and the info tells them, okay, this should be in Lululemon in Richmond or in Surrey or in Vancouver, not at this home, allegedly in Surrey.
Because of my extra questions, because I find this also interesting, you're left only with a minute to tell us about a big story here that is also part of this, which is the alleged revolving door when it comes to people who are charged, go on bail, allegedly do the crime again, get on bail, go out, allegedly do the crime again. That appears to have happened here.
This is huge because we talk about this often in terms of violent crime, but I listened to the bail hearings and the sentences with a couple of the prolific thieves here. And, basically they're let out as soon as they are arrested. In one case, there was a guy that was released 5 times, basically, and then he went on and he got a whole bunch more theft charges from Lululemon. And a judge basically saying to one of the accused, what's going on here? Like, you're basically, she served a jail term and immediately turned around 4 days later, arrested for, stealing again from Lululemon.
Yeah, a footnote, I have to say this. They recorded this. You got to listen to it, but you must not play it on the air. It's not legal.
I will never do that, or I will be in jail, not with you.
Crazy. Okay, thank you very much. It's just a fascinating story, and it's online for people who want to see it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's bring in Kash Heed for a look into this whole story. What a resume you have, Kash, former BC Solicitor General, former chief of the West Vancouver Police Department, and currently a city councillor in the suburb of Richmond. So this was a big theft operation. How did you react when you read Jason's story?
Well, number one, it's quite organized. And we've seen these organized theft rings operate in the city previously, but we've never seen it to the extent where it's just focused on one type of industry and one type of product. So when you look at the various levels, just like a drug trafficking operation or criminal organization, you've got the lower level, you have the mid-level, and you have the high level. So it was nice to see them work it up to the higher level.
Yeah, and why Lululemon products? Why did they target those? goes?
There's such a demand for the product. There's a domestic demand for the product, whether it's licit or illicit. If they can get it on 50 cents on the dollar from the illicit side of it, locally, and even from an international perspective, it's such a brand name throughout the world, and it's known as a fairly good product, but an expensive product.
You know, shoplifting seems to have become a bigger and bigger problem. I go to stores here in Vancouver and I see all the security officers who are there. I occasionally see people running out, being chased by the security officers. And then sometimes you hear people say they're buying out of necessity because they're poor, because they're feeding a habit. But this was big business. In this case, these thefts were happening. I mean, maybe the people who were doing the stealing needed the money for addiction, whatever it was. But the people higher up in the chain were doing this almost like they were running a business.
And they were running a business, an organized crime business. And the fact that they're depending on these lower level people that are in their circumstances and as such don't have as much fear from getting caught by the police. We've changed our tactics over the last little while where we don't really focus on the lower level, those people that are in the circumstances that they're in, but they're so desperate. If they're given an order to go out and get something, they'll do their utmost to try and get that product delivered to the next level.
Okay, let's talk about a really important issue here in Metro Vancouver. And as I say, in your current role as a Richmond City Councillor, I'm sure you think about this a lot. And that is what a lot of people call the revolving door in the courthouses, where somebody gets charged with a crime, they get let out on bail, and then they commit the crime again. Now, to be clear, if you're charged with a crime, you're not guilty yet, and you shouldn't necessarily languish in jail unless you pose a danger to the public, to yourself, or you're going to do the crime again. And here we had people who kept doing the crime, allegedly, again and again.
Well, when we talk about repeat offenders, there's a reverse onus. We've had Bail Reform Act take place here in Canada. The problem is, Ian, although the federal government has gone and said this is what's going on, and these people that are repeat offenders and chronic offenders that are involved in this crime, there's a reverse onus on why they should be let out. The problem is the administration of justice here in the province of British Columbia, and that's what's frustrating. So I can understand to a certain extent at the lower level and empathize on these people that are in their circumstances. But when you start working it up to the higher level, this is where we can make a difference in fact, ensuring that the Bail Reform Act is properly applied here in British Columbia to deter these criminal groups from operating and taking advantage of these people that are in their circumstances.
I also think that the more we tell stories like this, the more people know that their crime can have consequences, the more of a deterrent it is. But let me finish with this. You have the perfect resume to at least attempt to answer this question as a former police officer, as a former cabinet minister, and now as a city councillor. How do we put a dent in shoplifting? Well,
number one is you've got to have a comprehensive approach to dealing with it. You've got to have an approach which is different at the lower level, the people that are actually committing the shoplifting. You've got to have an approach at the mid-level and, of course, at the higher level. And we seem to be missing those approaches. So it's nice to see in Jason's story that they focused on a bit of a mid-level, a bit of a higher level. But we've got to have different approaches at various levels. And Ian, it has to be comprehensive in order to get on top of this.
Yeah, and one last thing I was thinking about, for the people who buy this stuff, maybe some of it gets shipped overseas, but on Facebook Marketplace, for example, if I see brand new Lululemon stuff with the tag on it, maybe I should be a little bit skeptical.
Well, we would hope that's the way it is. However, people are going to look at something that's advantageous to them if they can pick it up on 25, 50 cents on the dollar, and it's a product that is well known across the global world with respect to that, they're going to go up. Unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with from an ethical point of view.
Kash Heed, always nice having you on the program. Thank you very much.
A pleasure.